Now let's hear what you have to say. 1 second, I then have to go and pause it there, or else we'll hear all kind of feedback from there, which we don't want to hear. It is live. Where? I'm going to go there and pause it. Well, there are two aligned. 1 second. It's not bad. This one shouldn't be doing that at all. No, this is there are two aligned. This one shouldn't be doing that at all. No, this is I hope it's good. Okay. Get rid of this. And we are ready to go. Okay, thanks for your patience. So we are in the middle of learning, how do we stay out of trouble? How do we stay out of sadness when the Alter Rebbe says that his mission is to show us that it's a must not to have any trace of sadness or worry at all? How could that be? And that's what we're holding here, that he says the advice is that we should accept everything with joy, just like things that are openly good, we should accept everything that way. Everything we should accept, just like the things that are openly good. That's what we were holding from last week. So the question is, and he explained a few things. He gave an example of Joseph, the son of Jacob, and Rabbi Akiva, who both had stories where they should have been very sad, and instead they said this too is for the good. Joseph about sitting in jail for 10 years, Rabbi Akiva about losing in one night, no place to eat, no place to sleep, and losing his rooster and losing his donkey. And the next day he found out that was all really good, because the whole town that didn't let him sleep was ransacked by gangsters. So you see this idea of this too is for the good. Another story I didn't tell you, a famous story in the Talmud, is of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Gamzu means this too. And his last name was Nachum, was his first name. Ish, a man. Gamzu. This too is for the good. Whatever happened, this too is for the good. What happened? One of the story of Talmud says, he was once sent by the Jewish people to Rome to plead for a certain terrible decree that was happening. They sent along with him a box of diamonds and gold for the king to bribe him. He came to a hotel, and the guy in the hotel sniffed that this guy has in that box some good stuff. He didn't want he should know he's taking it, so he snuck into his room at night, emptied the pearls and diamonds, put it instead sand that weighed just as much. The next day, Nachum took it and went. Comes to the king, gets his connections, comes before the king. Your Majesty, I brought you this magnificent gift from your faithful, loyal tenants. And they opened the box, and the king freaked out. And the king said, I'm going to do much worse. An angel appeared like a minister and said, Your Majesty, the Jewish people are wise. Why do you think they would do that? To get you angry? Probably this is the sand they inherited from Abraham, who in Genesis threw sand at his enemies and it turned into arrows. He said, I'm in the middle of a war that I can't win now. Let me try it. And so he took that box and he won the war. He not only, of course, took away the decree, but he sent a royal guard with him, gifts galore. And of course, that whole box was full with diamonds and pearls times 10. On the way back, he knew already that this hotel guy is a crook, but now he had his guards. He stopped there again. And the hotel owner is going crazy. How did you get such a royal guard? What did you bring the king that he liked so much? He said, whatever I took from here, I brought there. The guy hears such a thing. He tears down his house, loads up 100 wagons of the same exact sand that Reb Nachum brought. He brought it to the king, and of course, it was worthless. That's the story that Gemara brings. So that's why we have the guts to say this too is for the good, because we believe that Hashem does it for the good. But this question remains, if really everything Hashem does is good, why does it look so bad? So soon we're going to go through again, what could be the reasons why the concealed good? But why? Why does it even have to look that way? Why does God have to do it in such a topsy-turvy way? When he wants to give you his good, just give it. So the Alter Rebbe explains in these next lines that we're going to learn now, the Alter Rebbe explains that there are two types of good. There's revealed good and there's hidden good. In other words, there is good that we could feel that it's good for us, and there's a good that causes us pain, and we don't see how it's good. Along with that, because it comes from Hashem who's good, we know that it's for our good. So my question to you is, could you give me some ideas? How could it be that something that it looks bad really is good? What does that even mean? Just give what we learned, what we didn't learn, ideas. How could it be that something that looks bad is really good?
You would be able to change something in your behavior.
You weren't clear. Can you say it again?
You would be able to change something in your behavior. That would be like telling you you have something to improve. However, my question is, when everything is to the good, it comes to the irreparable good. How could it be good when death comes?
Wow, Elaine, are you on a speakerphone or something?
No, I'm in front of my computer.
Yeah, this time and last time, your words came out pretty
funny.
Yeah. Say it over again.
Death. What is the good in death? When someone dies, I don't see the good.
Right. So that's yours. Thank you. So let's talk. That's a good question. Okay, let's address things lesser than that. How could bad really be good? So one example, and I'll wait till Brian to come back. I'm not sidestepping death. I think it will sort of, in other words, it's hard to address it directly, and we'll address it along with other things. So our question is, how could something really be good if it's bad, if it looks bad? So Elaine suggested one thing, because that might be a turning point in your life where it will wake you up and you'll start looking at life in a different, more serious way, and you'll become a mensch. That suddenly, like we see when tragedies happen, when sad things happen, and it wakes people up. So that's one, it could be a turning point in someone's life when they get beaten up. Another thing, simply even financially, that when someone he loses his $100 an hour job and he's totally devastated. And as a result, he opens a business that makes millions of dollars. Let's get a little more spiritual. And this is harder a little bit to appreciate because we don't see spirituality. And that is to clean out dirt that cleaved to my soul. So you see, enjoyment from illicit behavior, from wrong behavior, enjoyment equals moisture. Moisture gets dried out by fire. Pain equals fire. So the pain that, heaven forbid, should never happen to anyone, but that God decrees, cleans out all the moisture and thus the immoral behavior that he had. That immoral behavior, that moisture, doesn't allow him to be sensitive to enjoy spirituality, to enjoy God. It drags him to materialism. So that pain dries out the moisture from the negative behavior, and now he is free to cleave to God, to cleave to his inner soul, to cleave to someone else's problems. Does that make sense? That is a more spiritual idea. Another thing is to stop a future pain. Remember, there's justice in the world. So because we think sometimes that something is bad, the person lost $100,000. It could be that really the person was supposed to die. And because he did some major special charity or good deed, then God reversed his decree, and instead of dying, he lost $100,000. So that losing that $100,000 was really a good thing. So there are, if I have the trust, if I know there's someone moving the pieces around, if I know that God has a panoramic camera, I can see how something that looks bad really is good. So it doesn't mean that we always will see one day the good in it. Sometimes we never see it. Sometimes we do see it. That's where our connection to God comes in, that I develop that comfort level, that being that God promises that he loves us and that he does micromanage the world, that he is omnipotent and omniscient and omnibenevolent. And he says, I only do what's good for you. I develop that trust that I'm able to say, this too is for the good. The Alter Rebbe goes further. Let's learn a few lines inside, and that is on, I don't know page numbers here, right? I'll tell you in a second. We're the second page from the end. Second page from the end. So he said last time that in the middle of the page, in the 3 paragraphs on the top, the 4th paragraph. So before this, he explained that we should accept the hidden good just like we accept the open good. Okay? So why? Because for this too is for the good, except that it's not apparent and visible to mortal eyes. Why? For it stems from the hidden spirit. Are you with me, Brian? Brian? No? Second page from the end. Okay. No. Oh, maybe you don't have it? Do you have it? No? No. You know what? Some of these are messed up. 1 second. No, you don't have. Yeah, here it is. Here, Brian. Right here. For it too is for the. Give me this one. For it too is for the good, except that it's not apparent to visible and mortal eyes. Why not? Why can't it be apparent to visible and mortal eyes? For it stems from the hidden spiritual world, which is higher than the revealed spiritual world, whence derives an apparent and revealed good. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that why can't it just be good? Why does God have to give it in such a convoluted, topsy-turvy way? You want to give good, give good. He says this good, this hidden good, comes from a higher world, a hidden world. Want to have a little more Kabbalah just to put it in the mix? The next paragraph. The latter emanates from the letters Vav and Hey of Havaya, the 4-letter divine name composed of the letters Yud and Hey and a Vav and a Hey. So the first 2 letters refer to the hidden world. The last 2 letters refer to the revealed world. So the Yud and the Hey are the hidden world, the first 2 letters. The Vav and the Hey are lower worlds. Next paragraph. This is also the meaning of the verse. Happy is the man, happy, whom you, God, spelled Yud and Hey, not the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton. It's another name of God that's made up only of the first 2 letters. Which worlds do the first 2 letters represent? The hidden worlds. What comes from the hidden worlds? Disguised good. So the verse says, happy is the man whom you, God, chasten. Who's the one who does the chastening? The concealed, the Yud and the K. Since the verse speaks of man's suffering, only the letters Yud and Hey are mentioned. Man sees misfortune only because he cannot perceive that which derives from a higher, hidden level of godliness. In truth, however, the misfortunes are actually blessings in disguise. On the contrary, they represent an even higher level of good than the revealed good, since they originate in the higher world. So this is like a whole book, these 2 paragraphs. So let's go over these 6 lines orally. So you know what the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton are. You know they represent 4 levels in the way God creates all the worlds till this world. So as God lowers himself through the worlds, the parable for that, the analogy for that, is Einstein wanting to teach when he came out of his cave, where he developed his theories, and he now wants to share it with the world. When he goes to great scholars, they're still not up to par with him. It's painful for him to serve it to them on a level that they should be able to grasp it. He has to put it into a little teaspoon. And then the great scholars understand it. And then they tell him, Einstein, do me a favor. Come to my students, who are great scholars, not like me, but they're great scholars. Could you teach it to them? And Einstein says, could you please teach it to them? It's too painful for me. No, please, you do it. Einstein gets down to the dear students, and now it's really painful for him to serve it on baby rubber covered spoons. And then they tell him, could you come to our students? And can you come to our students? Each time it's another painful step for Einstein to take his pristine wisdom and serve it that these rule should be able to understand it. But by the way, what is he giving them? Is he giving them a different theory? No. He's giving them his theory, but in simplistic terms. So the more they will grow, the more of the essence they'll get. But they already have the theory. You understand how Einstein, the same Einstein, teaching 4 different levels, and slowly he's making it more coarse and callous and simple, as simpler, until a good college student could actually understand some of it. The same thing is with God. Divided, of course, to be separated a million times. That when God wanted to relate to this world and teach and aspire and create this world, the lower the world is, the more painful it was for God to contract his shine and hide it. Because if he would reveal it, it would just burn everything up. It would be too much. It would overwhelm. So the Yud Kei Vav Kei are 4 levels how God lowers himself lower and lower to relate and create and run this world. It's the same God, the same everything, a bigger pain, a bigger contraction. If you understood this, you understood a very important fundamental in Jewish mysticism. Do we understand this? Not yet. The Einstein analogy, do you understand?
I understand it, but I'm trying to.
No. That's this is not a one-time deal. So what I was trying to bring out, what the Alter Rebbe is bringing out from here, is this verse that says, "Happy is the man whom God deals with as God is on a higher level. Happy is the man whom Einstein gives him his essence." So imagine when Einstein comes out of his cave and he comes to someone and says, "How do you want me to give it to you? The way I see it or the way I downgrade it a million times?" Many will tell him, "The way you downgrade it a million times." One guy is going to say, "No way. I want to get it just like you're giving it." You know what Einstein says? "Get ready for the pain." And Einstein starts speaking cryptic, high-level words. And the guy says, "Can you stop? I can't." "Oh, no, go further. I can't anymore." For a real scholar, when he hears words that he can't understand, it drives him crazy. So this scholar who wants to raise himself to Einstein's level because he wants to get the real thing, has an uncomfortable class. The other students who say, "God, Einstein, keep your wisdom. I just need what I need to pass the test, I just want to hear your theory." I said, "This is fine." And he gives them a watered down version. So when God wants to give us, so for example, it says that one of the prophets told God, "Treat the idol worshipers with kindness. If not, they're going to curse you. If you don't give them an open good, they'll just curse you. But your righteous people, give them yourself. Give them yourself as you are on the highest level. And it will be painful, and they'll accept it." Topsy-turvy. So the closer you are to the essence of the giver, the more they give you of themselves. But that giving could be painful. Let me give you a simple analogy that I always like to give. from a mother and a daughter. And we'll take it, I'll tell you the story, and then we'll take it back over here. Okay? For this one, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy. Leah, and I think I've shared this before. Leah, her mother and father have money. And when she was in high school, they built a pool because they love her so much. As soon as she had it, she asked them, could I invite the neighborhood? I said, sure. You want to? No, she felt good. She invited everyone came running. Every day they would spend there straight from school. Boom, they would end up there and have a blast. Blast for a couple hours, and Leah's mother calls her, Leah, you got to do your homework. Mom, everyone's here. I assume. Leah, get over here. Leah comes in, go do your homework. By the time she finishes her homework, it's night and it's over. The next day again, And she says, Mom, it's not fair. All these strangers, them you give a blast. And me, your only daughter, and this is what you do. I do it for your good. Mom, enough of the good. Let me just have the real good. And this evolves, and we'll cut a long story short, but there were bitter times there where Leah said, I want to live in someone else's house. They won't love me so much. They'll just let me swim like all the other kids. Look, Leah, don't you understand? We love you. That's why we're schlepping you in for the homework. I know. Don't give me so much love. Love me the way you love them. One day, she's going to college. And the day she's about to leave to college, she sees a big sign in the backyard, swimming pool is closed for good. Mom, what did you do? Everyone wants to come here. Oh, Leah, do you think we're so hospitable that we have so much money to treat the whole neighborhood? We built it for you. It was all for you. As long as you needed it and wanted it, and you wanted everyone to come with pleasure. But it was all for you. Leah burst out crying. She finally realized, you idiot. Your mother loves you to no end. Now she realized that who do you want? Do you want to have your mother should treat you like a stranger and give you revealed good, which is letting you play? Or do you want her to give you her essence? Do you want her to give you her real giving, which is getting you into Harvard? Which one do you want? So happy is the man who God relates to him in his essence. And that could be painful because there God pushes you around because he wants you to get the real good. But the idol worshiper, God, whatever you want, you want whatever you want. I mean, you don't serve me anyway. Whatever, take what you want. So there are two parts to this. Immature and mature within the adult. The immature part is where Leah realizes that actually I want to connect to the real mother because that gets me into Harvard. What's a more mature level? I want to connect to my real mother, even if it doesn't get me into Harvard. I want my mother. I don't want my mother watered down as a stranger. I want my mother to feel so close to me that she gives me the whole good that she knows how. Not because it's going to get me into Harvard, because I want that relationship with her. So the same thing is over here. That God, when he is in his infinity, he treats you differently. That's what it says. There are scary stories. That God treats harshly his holiest people. He doesn't conceal anything. He gives them his ultimate good. His ultimate good doesn't feel good because it's like you're getting someone and you want to develop them to become mighty physically, and you work them hard in the exercise room. And you have a very strong goal. Imagine if your trainer knew exactly the limit where it won't hurt you, It won't damage you, but boy, will it hurt. If he's a great trainer, he'll push you to the edge. Today's trainers won't do that because they don't know where that edge is. But if he knew where the edge is, he would push you to the edge if you're his son. If you're a stranger, he'll give you cookies. So there's two parts to it. One part is that I recognize that that's weird, that God is giving me the real good, that the hidden good is actually the greater good. And the greater good I only get when God relates to me in his essence from the concealed world. But the second thing is, I just want God. I want to be close to God. I want to be close to my soul. I want to be close to my mission, even if it's going to cost me whatever it costs. That's what he says here. Happy is the man who God chastens him. Because which part of God chastens him? God in his essence. Happy is the man who has a mother. Happy is the man who has a God who loves him dearly. Happy is the girl who has a mother who loves her dearly. Sad is the girl whose mother treats her like a stranger and gives her everything she wants.
So when we boil it all down and put it on a second first level, is what I'm hearing is that eventually we will, as long as we believe it's God's will, and it could be the most painful thing in the world, if we continue to believe, one day we will understand why it was good.
Correct. However, that one day could be tomorrow, it could be the next day,
Right.
and it could also be when Mashiach comes.
Correct. And how you define good, good can be,
No, good that you're going to know it's good.
okay.
But you're going to have a different pair of lenses, though. So how does that work that we are commanded that someone should grieve when someone dies?
Mm-hmm.
So, because the Torah says that is a very sad event openly, hiddenly there is good there, and therefore you should cry because you're human, you're physical, and you are experiencing grief and pain, and it's painful to God too. So when God makes that you lose 100 grand to save you from dying, losing 100 grand to you and to God is painful. And God says, make a blessing the true judge, not God who does good for me. Because none of us are up to that level to actually feel good. I'll never forget, this lady on the screen is an analogy I always give, and I'll tell her for the first time the story. I tell your story to many people without your name. I won't say your name now either, but the story is that many years ago, when open heart surgeries or a triple, quadruple bypass was physically so painful because they broke open your heart. It was physically excruciating pain. Someone was going to New Zealand, and I suddenly hear she's in the hospital. I go to visit her in the hospital. She had an emergency quadruple or triple bypass. And I go in to visit her. I'm so sad for the operation. She lost her trip she was looking forward to. And she's all smiles. And I can't understand why she's smiling. And she says, Rabbi, could you imagine? I could have been in New Zealand with an emergency. So she was dancing with the pain. That's the right level, but we are not such people to be able to experience real pain. And because I know God is involved, I should really be smiling. So therefore, we cry. And God wants us to cry. If you're sad, cry. And when it says if someone doesn't die for a physical brother who died, he's a sadist. There were philosophies that said, what's wrong? People die, people live. That's the way of the world. No reason to cry. No, God wants us to cry and to experience it and to grieve. And after a year, think to be able to continue because God is behind it and not to fall into depression. That's by death, by things less than each person, depending how spiritual you are and how big the trouble is, you could lift yourself higher to that level where you're able to smile.
I don't know. I guess it comes to a point where you will most likely you'll feel closer to God. Every time there may be a setback, if you believe that it's His will, okay, and you look to try to find the good in it, I guess you'll always go back and say it'll put you closer to God because it was God's will to put you in that situation.
That's the higher level.
Okay.
That's simply, I'm smiling because happy is the man who God treats him like a child in his essence. A lower level is that I don't fall into depression because I know actually it's good for me. So the spirituality that you need in order to be happy with torture, in order to be closer to God, that's one level. Mm-hmm. A lesser level is needed if you actually believe that physically it's better for you. I lost 100 grand and it saved me from much worse. That's an easier thing to bite into. All these contemplations help us at least not to get depressed.
You were telling the story about Lee and her mother. Okay, I kept saying these words that I've said to my kids, and my parents said, one day you will understand.
And you know what the kids say? Jump in the lake.
Right.
You're cheap, and you're clothing it in holy words.
But it does eventually happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
So when my father was 10.
Why? And I question so many things my father did. And today I understand, and I truly do understand why he did what he did.
That's why we need to encourage our children to get married and have children. One reason. Would they understand if they remained a bachelor and never had it?
So someone I know called his mother, and he was not the sentimental type to make such phone calls. Calls his mother and starts thanking her for everything she did for him. And his mother didn't recognize him. What in the world are you here? So became such a mush. He says, Mom, if I was anything like my child is, thank you so much.
That's my joke. I hope you have a child like yourself.
So I'll tell you a Hasidic story. A true story, is that Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli and his brother used to go on long exiles to refine themselves and also to see if they could help some of their brethren. So they would go dressed as simple people. Anyway, make a long story short, a libel was made on them. They ended up in jail. They're in jail, and you know what they did? They didn't get sad. They didn't get depressed. In the morning, one of the anti-Semites in jail sees them praying, and he knew the Jewish law that you can't pray when there is excrement around, when there is waste around. So he took from the bathroom and I'm sorry. Yeah, and he put there in the room a pile of waste. the brothers got depressed. They said, we're in jail, fine. We can't pray. That's too much. So his brother said, Zusha, why aren't we praying? Because God told us not to pray in such a thing. So we're serving God now by not praying. How could we not be happy? He took his brother and they went dancing. The guard looks in from the thing and sees two prisoners dancing. Gets so mad. He opens the door. Why are they dancing? Because there's this waste in here, this pile of waste. The guy got so mad he pulled out the waste. So there were great people who actually this guided them continuously. But even smaller people, it could take the edge off the pain. And this comes to continuously thinking about it and to connecting to God through doing a mitzvah. And that IV of connection to God helps us tap into that more. So, summarize, what did we learn? We learned that bad is really good and that the hidden good is really higher. Remember the story with Nachum Ish Gamzu, who I told you about the sand? And after the guy stole his whole case of diamonds, and he ends up in jail. I forgot to tell you, he ended up in jail there when he brings the king this casket of sand. And he was going to be hung. And he says, this too is for the good. That's what he said when they put him in jail. The angel came and defended him. They pulled him out of jail. And they said, no, it's all good. You're going to go home. We're going to reward you. You know what he said? This too is for the good. Now, let me ask you a question. Which good was better? The open good or the revealed good? What was the open good? The box of diamonds that he brought to the king. Would that have really swayed the king? Chances are 60% the king would not be swayed by a box of gold. But the sand, that was the hidden good, that did the job in a second. So because he recognized that when the guy stole everything and ended him up in jail, that was really good. Why did he say that? Because he says, God's taking care of me with this hidden good. That hidden good is much higher than the revealed good. So we see now that if we're able to develop that trust in God, in fact, we are opening ourselves up to a much more open good. And we also summarized a very important thing, that why are we happy? Not only because I've ended up in Harvard because of that strict treatment, but because I want to be close to God. I want to be close to my soul. I want to be close to my real mission in life. I want to be close to God's commandments. So when God is spiritualizing me by washing away some of my stains through a little beating, I'm fine. Because I know now I'm going to be able to cleave to spirit. I'll be sensitive to spirituality, to someone else's pain, not being so self-centered and being more spiritually inclined, because I'll have less guck and muck all around me from the sins that I did. So I nod my head, okay, God. I know the injection hurts. The open heart surgery hurts, but I feel like I'm getting life from it. So he's happy because the most precious thing is that he could be close to God. So let's learn another couple lines in the Tanya. For this reason, I'm continuing. For this reason, our sages stated, you have it, Ben?
The very bottom of that thing.
On this page.
For this reason, second to the back page.
Oh, second.
For this reason,
Yes.
for this reason, our sages stated that the verse, those who love him, shall be as the sun when it comes out in its might, refers to the reward of those who rejoice in their afflictions. Because who rejoices? Those who love him. Who rejoices? Those who are ready to give up on the physical in order to be closer to God. I'll read here the commentary. God always rewards man measure for measure. What is the connection then between rejoicing in affliction and the sun? Are you with me? What is the connection? Also, why are those who rejoice in affliction described as those who love God? They rejoice in affliction. Why are you connecting it to loving God? The Alter Rebbe now explains that since misfortune is really nothing but a disguise for the higher form of good that derives from the hidden world, the option as to whether it will bring man either joy or misery depends on his priorities. I digress. Do we understand this? Since we're saying that misfortune is simply God in a higher level of God, relating to you as in his inner chambers, so really it just depends on your priorities, what's good and what's not. I continue. If he deems his physical life all important, he will indeed be miserable. While if nearness to God is his primary concern, he will rejoice, since nearness to God is found in a greater measure in the hidden world, whence derives the good that is hidden in misfortune. So only a mature Leah from the swimming pool rejoices because she wants that connection to a real mother who will do anything to take care of her for real, not for giving her instant pleasure. Though I continue, those who rejoice in suffering are therefore called lovers of God and are rewarded by being granted the vision of the sun emerging in its might. Since in this world they disregarded externals and ignored the veil of misfortune, hiding the good within, choosing instead to concern themselves with a deeper aspect of good and godliness lying behind the veil, right? There's the veil, and there's God hiding behind the veil. They didn't want to hear about the veil. God rewards them in the world to come, measure for measure, by casting off the veils that surround him and revealing himself in his full glory to those who love him. You wanted to be close to me all the time, even at the expense of all the comforts? Well, now in the real world, I'll let you be close to me. You wanted to be a stranger? Go ahead, be a stranger. So when I cast off the veils, you don't deserve to be there. You don't deserve to come with me on my honeymoon. You always wanted just my money. Here's my money. You didn't want me. You weren't ready to pay anything to have me. When I'm going on my honeymoon or on my intimate, very personal celebration, I don't want you there. I want to have people who are really close to me. I want to have people who really paid the price for being close to me. So those who love him will be there when the sun, i.e. God, comes out in his full glory, i.e. without any veils. Because they never cared for veils. They always searched for God's essence. They gave up on the veiled good of being able to swim in the swimming pool at all times, and they searched for, where's my real mother? My real mother's by the homework. That's painful stuff, but that's where she is, and I'm going there. A different Leah who went asking for it. Well, then she deserves the real mother. When we're always looking to be close to God, even at the expense of veiled good, then veiled good meaning it's open good, but that's because God is behind veils. God is giving you swimming pools instead of Harvard. So then we don't deserve to be near God when God is open.
So in the here and now, is it more important that we search for the veil of good or find the veil?
So God said, oh, like always, Judaism is a paradox. We're supposed to look and ask God for revealed good. I wish you all the time a good year and a sweet year. Why didn't I just say good year? Because good could be hidden good. Open heart surgeries are good. So we say, have a sweet year. May God give you no open heart surgeries. There should be no blockages. There should be a medicine to get rid of them without pain. We look and we beg God. You know who didn't ask for that? King David. He said, God, I love you so much. Test me. God said, really? God tested him and he fell flat on his face. And from then on in Psalms, he says, God, please never test me. Never. I want revealed good only. Only revealed good. And then when God serves you a potion of the not revealed good, that's when I run back to the Tanya and I pull it all out of my suitcase and I study it 101 times and I get an ounce of security and happiness. So what we want is always, I want to be close to you, God. But God, you're almighty. You could be close to me. You could be shining your hidden world and it should still be openly sweet. You're almighty. That's what we beg for. But when God decides otherwise, we try to raise ourselves to a level and a higher level and a higher level. And that's a daily effort and a weekly and a yearly, meaning you do a mitzvah, it sensitizes you. You could feel closer to God. You could feel, what do you mean? You could sense God. You could sense that feeling that I would rather be close to my soul, to my mission, rather than $1 billion. It's not easy. So those wrestlers and boxers that gave up on $10 million contracts, that's unbelievable. That's because they put on tefillin before. They went to the mikvah and they developed a sensitivity to their soul that was strong enough that they chose Shabbos over $10 million. They still have a journey because our evil inclination never gives up on us. Always fresh and ready to go for a new challenge. So it's a continuous thing, very difficult. This is one of the highest levels that we're talking about here, that you should be, and it's anyone who tells you that they're already at that level, maybe. Sounds to me. I want to talk. Well, yeah, there are people. So one of the stories he tells here is famous story. There are many. I mean, you'll find taking the edge off the pain by many people, and then too they have ups and downs. I mean, you went to people who lost children, and they were sitting in the 7 days of mourning and comforting the comforters. Does that mean they didn't cry 20 years later? They did. But they were able to really engender gratefulness and inspiration. You saw it shining on them. Their whole life afterwards, the next 50 years, was going like this. They're human. And yet they reached high levels. The most extreme one, it's not the most extreme one, but I mean, there are many extreme stories of real holy people. One of them was he was holy. Shmuel Munkus. So he was from the first generation of Chabad. And he had Hasidim who looked to him as their mentor. And once everything he had, those days there were no Swiss bank accounts and no key bank accounts. It was all in your house. And he had nothing to begin with. They were all burned down with everything they had. Went straight to the floor. He's a poor man with his family. No clothes and no insurance. And no food stamps or whatever. It was pretty bad. His students heard about it. They were devastated, and they came. They knew he didn't see it yet. He was out of town. And he was arriving, so they went there to be there, hold his hand. And when they came there, they actually were a little curious. He was a great man, and they see him looking at the ruins. And he starts saying, "Blessed are you, God." And they were sure he was going to say the true judge, King of the universe. And he took a page out of the morning blessings and said, "Who didn't make me an idol worshiper?" What's the connection? Because don't you understand? If I was an idol worshiper, besides all my goods that are done, my whole life is done, my idol would be in there, burnt to crisp. I would be in a mess. Thank God, my God didn't get burnt in there. He's alive and good. He'll take care of me. The same thing is by us. If what's important to us is our God, our soul, our inner mission, our family, then when that house burned down, I still have a life. But if all I care about is my material, there's a problem. I'm in trouble. So that's where this is all a continuous climb. And I think, let's finish this paragraph here. You know what? It's really beautiful, and I don't know if I should just finish. There were two boys and two kids, and they were counted like little scholars. And so someone tested them. He brought a king or something, and he gave them each a cup of beer separately. And said, taste it. And one of them was not the wise one, it was bitter. The second one tasted it. Finally says, it's bitter, but it's good. So that's the difference. That when we learn and we experience this, we're able to say it's bitter, but it's good. Stop over here. I'm just going to finish these things here. We'll take another 5 minutes, okay? The 4-letter, is that where we are? For the 4-letter divine name, signifying God in his essence, is compared to a sun. Elaine, could you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the name Elohim, signifying God as he is clothed and concealed in the created universe, is compared to a veil shielding the created beings from the intensity of its rays. As it is written, a sun and a shield, respectively, are Hashem, i.e. the 4-letter name Elohim. In the world to come, the sun will emerge from its shield, i.e. the 4-letter name will no longer be veiled by Elohim, and it will shine forth in its might as a reward for those who love him. This, in summary, is the explanation contained in the following paragraphs. This was Chinese. I'm going to read, though, the following paragraphs, and I'm sorry, we're stopping here. It's all Kabbalah, and I just can't do justice in these few minutes. Let's take a few minutes. Anyone has questions? Anyone wants to summarize and say something that we could take home with us?
I really like the example of I really love the example of the 2 men in jail finding the greater hidden good. That's a goal.
You're able to acknowledge the bitter. You should acknowledge the bitter, even with trying to find the good.
And because we are physical, we are allowed to, and we're definitely allowed to be honest. But at the same time, we try to connect with our truer self, with the truth. In other words, we know it's true. It's a matter of trying to connect and saying, so lately, it happened a few times where someone told me, oh, someone just told me this. Something real harsh happened to them. Something really harsh. I was shocked. Who was it? I said Rosh Hashanah, how I learned from my students. Can't remember now who said it. I said, listen. Oh, I know now. Real troubles, deep ones, spiritual, meaning emotional ones. She said, because of all these troubles, I became close to the Chabad house and close to God, and I have my God now. Isn't that anything? That was pretty mighty, and it was reflective. It wasn't at all making a statement. It was like, after grieving, right there on the spot, that person was able to say, but so we inject meaning. That's Viktor Frankl's thing, the big psychologist who lived through the Holocaust. He said, no one could force us on how we should respond. No one could force us. We have the right to inject meaning in everything, to find meaning in everything. And he says, he confessed, he says, when I teach it, I don't talk about God. I say, you could just create your meaning in everything. But I ridicule that a little bit. Because really, to me, that's silly. A little bit. Why should I create a farce? Why should I convince myself something that's not true? Well, I would do that to get myself out of depression, but not as a long-term solution. The benefit we have is we know it's true. We know that God really has a meaning for this, and He gives us permission to make up our own. Meaning, I don't really know what God's reason for it is, right? But anything I'll find, anything I'll create, probably some of it's true. And one thing's for sure, it's helping me accept the main thing, which is just to know that it's true. What's the main thing? To know that God's in charge, to know that God is good, to know that this is good. What exactly the good is, who cares? Does anyone really care? Does it really matter? It just matters that it's good. And I know that's true. I know that it is good. So I'm making up reasons, first of all, because God says I should. Second of all, it's just camouflage, just helping me get to the goal, which is to know the truth that this is really good. But just want to remind you the story I told you, not a cynical story, but it's of the dean who taught it his whole life, and then when it happened to him, he fainted. And the student said, "Why? You're still a human being." So, first of all, you could have been fooling yourself that you really were at that level. And second of all, none of us are, and all of us are. It's a continuous ascent, and sometimes a descent. Guys, I am going tomorrow 5 a.m. to the Rebbe's resting place for the Rebbe's mother's yard site. I'll probably send out a text. You're welcome to leave me your name and mother's name, and I will include it in my letter, God willing. Next week we will not have class, and the following week we will. Just because on the holidays we're skipping a week. My dear friends, good night. Have a Gemar Chasima Tova to be sealed for the good, and please invite your friends that they should come to services at least once. I feel good.